We wrap up what is the first week of the new league year and talk about free agency and how that's impacted April's draft. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for March 14th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, you're checking us out on the YouTube page, we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day. That's because of your support each and every day. And, of course, the job my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of the YouTube page. So, again, we shout out Ari. He does a phenomenal job. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. A lot of calls, a lot of texts. We're going to try to get through as many as possible as we close out the show today. I want to make sure to get your feedback in before we head to the weekend. So we'll try to go through them kind of fast and furious. But rock with us, Raider Nation. I know there's a lot of them. I know there's a lot of great feedback. We'll try to get through as much as possible. Segment number 3. Segment number 2, you'll hear from Mel Kiper Jr., NFL draft analyst. He's a part of my radio show on ESPN each and every Thursday, 12:30 Eastern time, Joe and Q. And we talked to him about the free agency and how that can have an impact at the top of the NFL draft, right? Talked about Shedeur Sanders, talked about Cam Ward going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, even talked about Travis Hunter. How low can he potentially go? Like, what's the furthest he could drop in the upcoming draft? So you'll hear some really good sound bites from him coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. Really a heck of a recap when it comes to players made official on Thursday, more agreements that the Raiders came to, and even some players that they lost by way of free agency. We got a lot to get to here in segment number 1, so let's go ahead and jump into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show. That's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So first off top, the Raiders came to an agreement with Raheem Mostert, the running back. He was last with the Dolphins, been with the 49ers. He's a guy that knows Chip Kelly really well. 1 year, $2.1 million deal as a 10-year vet, had 1,012 rushing yards and a league-leading 21 total touchdowns in 2023. He was banged up in 2024. Injury bug has hit him pretty bad, but a heck of a player, right? I mean, what he was able to do in San Francisco, what he was able to do early on in Miami has been phenomenal. And the most important part of the whole situation, he knows Chip Kelly and that offense really well. He reunites with Chip Kelly, and we know that for Chip Kelly's offense to go, he doesn't need a running quarterback, but he needs a running game. Not saying Raheem Mostert's going to be the end-all, be-all, but he's part of the puzzle. So 1 year, $2.1 million deal, no big deal. But that happened on Thursday. That has not become official by the Raiders just yet, but the deal was agreed upon on Thursday. Who did they make it official with on Thursday? Well, just about everybody. Quarterback Geno Smith was the first one. Of course, he was acquired by way of trade. The Raiders put out an email saying that the Raiders acquired Geno Smith with a trade with the Seahawks. As part of the trade terms, the Raiders will send the Seahawks a third-round pick, 92nd overall in the 2025 NFL draft. So that's the pick that the Raiders received for Devontae Adams, number 92 overall. That's now owned by Seattle, and the Raiders get Geno Smith. He did not meet with the media on Thursday. I think that he's not going to meet with the media until they actually get his contract extension done, and I believe his contract extension should be done probably by Sunday. He has a $16 million roster bonus by the 16th, and again, that would be Sunday, so I'm expecting them to get that deal, that extension done before then, and they'll probably have him meet with the media. I would just say, just kind of, just shooting from my gut, I would just say probably on Monday he'll meet with the media. But he officially is a member of the Silver and Black. Jeremy Chin, the safety, they also made it official with him. They put out the email he spent last season with the Commanders after originally being drafted by the Panthers in the second round of the 2025 draft, spending the first 4 seasons with the team. He's appeared in 71 career games, 67 starts, and 427 total tackles, 6 sacks, 19 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, 2 defensive touchdowns, 22 passes defense, and 3 interceptions. He's basically a Swiss Army knife. We said that when they came to agreement with them early in free agency. He's a guy that could just play anywhere on the field, but he'll obviously compete at that back end and take the place of Trayvon Merrick, who went to the Carolina Panthers for big money. Linebacker Landon Roberts from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They also came to agreement with him, and it became official. He enters the 10th season in the NFL and played in 140 career games with 105 starts for the Patriots, Dolphins, and Steelers. Also appeared in 13 career postseason games and has won 2 Super Bowls. So he's got them Lombardis. He got them rings, right? That's under his belt. He's very familiar with winning. He brings a really good attitude. He's a hungry dude. He's a thumper. When he met with the media, I wasn't there to be in attendance, but I did get to hear it. Just sounded like that dude was eager, hungry, couldn't wait to get going, and just fired up to be a member of the Silver and Black. So that's always good. Safety and cornerback Lonnie Johnson Jr. They made it official with him as well. He's 6'2", 213 pounds. Entered the league as a second-round pick by the Texans in 2019. Spent 3 years with the team before playing with the Titans and the Saints during his 6-year career. So he's a guy that's funny. After he finished talking, my guy, Brother Marquise in 305 rep Miami one time, sent me a text and said, Lonnie Johnson Jr., listening to him, and I enjoy listening to all the pressers, but listening to him, he sounds like your type of guy, a guy who's hungry. And the funny thing about it, he's right. But it's not just Lonnie Johnson Jr. that's hungry. It's also Landon Roberts, E-Rob, Jeremy Chin, he's hungry. Geno Smith, he's hungry. Eric Stokes, who had also became official with him on Thursday as well, he's hungry. And that's going to be the theme, right? I mean, Pete Carroll wants these guys to go out there and compete at the highest level. How do you get these guys to compete? Well, they got to be hungry. They got to have an edge. They got to have something to prove. They want to prove somebody wrong, right? Whatever gets them motivated and gets them going to prove something, that's what they're going to want to do. So you've got to have that hunger in you. And all these guys that they've come to agreement with or signed, sealed, and delivered all have that. I mentioned Eric Stokes. They made it official with him as well. Spent the first 4 seasons with the Packers after being drafted in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Over his career, playing 45 games with 32 starts, 127 total tackles, 1 pick, and 14 passes defense. As I mentioned before, he's a guy that's just been riddled with injuries. Ever since his rookie year, he's been hit with the injury bug, and he just can't really shake that. It's funny, I talked to Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers on Thursday night, and the last thing he said after we talked about Nate Hobb for a while, he said, hey, make sure you take good care of Eric Stokes. He's a great dude. He's going to give you everything he's got. Hard worker. You guys are going to enjoy him. So just a couple of encouraging words right there from Peter Bukowski when it comes to Eric Stokes, who was a former first-round pick of the Green Bay Packers. So those are all the deals that they made official. Also on Thursday, there's more. The Raiders lost a few guys. Now, the first guy wasn't really lost because they had already released him. Matter of fact, it's quarterback Gardner Minshew. They released him with the designation of a failed physical. Well, the very next day after that, and I didn't even realize that till like midway through Thursday, the tweet from Adam Schefter's sources, free agent quarterback Gardner Minshew reached an agreement today on a 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs, a new backup for Patrick Mahomes. I did not see that coming at all. Did not think that Gardner Minshew, I knew he was going to keep playing in 2025. I don't know why I didn't think the Chiefs were going to be that team, but apparently they thought, hey, you know what? Any quarterback can come in here, hold a clipboard behind Patrick Mahomes. That's all we need him to do. So Gardner Minshew leaves the Raiders and stays in the AFC West and heads to the Kansas City Chiefs. No big deal, right? The Raiders already released him anyway, kind of know what he is at the quarterback position. We talked about Raheem Mostert coming over from the Miami Dolphins to the Raiders. Well, the Raiders returned the favor. Source, former Raiders running back Alexander Mattison is signing with the Dolphins. So one running back goes from Miami to Las Vegas. Another running back goes from Las Vegas to Miami. Alexander Mattison, a 1-year deal to go to Miami. Obviously, I got a lot of respect for him. He did some really good things with the Raiders, gave everything he had. Wasn't very successful, but nobody that was in that running back room was very successful in 2024. But now he heads to the Miami Dolphins. And this one was, I don't want to say a surprise, but kind of disappointing. This one comes from, I believe, Adam Schefter as well. The Patriots are adding again on defense, signing Raiders edge rusher K'Lavon Chaisson to a 1-year, $5 million deal. The former first-rounder came on strong in Las Vegas, and came on strong, he sure did. 5 sacks, a forced fumble, interception in 2024 with the Raiders, and that's after Tom Telesco picked him up off of waivers. So K'Lavon Chaisson, I was hoping that the Raiders were going to find a way to keep him in the mix. Thought he had some really good things cooking with the team, but I get it. You're not going to keep everybody. They just gave Malcolm Kuntz a nice 1-year, $12 million deal. So he probably felt like he has a better chance to get on the field and compete behind being in New England instead of being in Vegas with the Raiders when he's going to be at least a little bit lower on the depth chart. Again, I don't know if the Raiders thought about keeping him, but he's headed to the Patriots on a 1-year, $5 million deal. And how many former Raiders now are in New England? It's funny, when Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler took over, there were so many former Patriots that went to the Raiders. Now it's like they're returning the favor. They're sending the Raiders back to New England. So K'Lavon Chaisson is now a member of the Patriots. Whew. That was a lot, right? Probably have to get some water now. I'm going to have to go and get a water break after all those transactions that the Raiders went through on Thursday. And, again, just want to get you caught up on everything that we can get you caught up, send you into the weekend the right way. Coming up in segment number 2, how has free agency impacted the draft for the teams at the top? What's the quarterback situation looking like? And more. You'll hear from Mel Kiper Jr. coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get there, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. March Madness is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Don't forget, Selection Sunday is coming up this Sunday, the 16th. That's right, for the bracket reveal for the men and the women. So right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. You can have your eye on underdogs. You can look at the spreads. You can look at the totals, game props, whatever the case may be. You can go all the way chalk. You can say, you know what, I'm going all favorites. You can do whatever you want to do. But tournament games are always exciting. They're fun to bet on. And the FanDuel app is so simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to let you hear some sounds from Mel Kiper Jr., NFL draft analyst for ESPN. He's a guest on my radio show, Joe and Q, on ESPN Radio each and every Thursday at 12:30 Eastern Time. He's going to be a guest each and every week. Very blessed to have him as a guest leading all the way up to the NFL draft. So, man, I'm so excited by that. It's one of those things that I've talked about for a very long time. Always wanted to do shows with him. Now he's a guest on my show. So, wow, pretty wild. Goes full circle. But we had some things that we wanted to talk to him about, and we started off with free agency, right? I mean, he's been talking about how Sam Darnold, how Justin Fields, how Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, others will be impacting the draft. And so some of those guys are off the board. So my first question to him was about free agency. Sam Darnold's in Seattle. Geno Smith, the Raiders traded to bring him into the mix. Justin Fields is in New York with the Jets. So how has he seen free agency impact the draft so far? Does he think it's made a big impact?
Well, it's still to be determined at the top. And I think we've figured out, okay, Vegas at 6 now can go Ashton Ginty if they want. They want that running back to help the quarterback. Pete Carroll's got his quarterback in Geno. Jets have Justin Fields. I don't think they will take a quarterback there. I think they would look at maybe Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Field Yates thinks Armand Membu, the right tackle from Missouri. So they can fill a void, fill a need at that spot now by getting Justin. Okay, and then you have a versatile kid like Warren with Justin Fields. You're killing a creative offensive coordinator can do wonders there. So I think what we're waiting on is what Tennessee's going to do, what's Cleveland going to do, what the Giants going to do, what's Pittsburgh going to do. So we got Jackson Dart in the mix for the first round. Could the Rams be a possibility there? Aaron Rodgers still out there. I think Pittsburgh's going to be the interesting one. I was surprised, guys, that they let Justin Fields go. And I don't understand, hey, he was disappointed, he was upset, he was benched, and then he wasn't brought back and this and that. But he had said, I want to be in the same system 2 years in a row. And he hadn't had that opportunity. And now he has to go and learn another offense. So I think for Justin Fields leaving Pittsburgh, that to me was a little bit of a surprise. Not a shock, but a surprise.
So still kind of TBD, right? Because there's still a couple dominoes to drop when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, when it comes to Russell Wilson. I spent a lot of time talking about those scenarios. And I'll tell you, side note, I really think that Aaron Rodgers is going to end up in Minnesota with the Vikings, which is wild because then the Steelers are going to be left holding the bag. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, you saw them on Thursday. They came to an agreement deal with Mason Rudolph. They're bringing that thing back. They're bringing that old thing back. Yeah, I don't know about that. Joe Flacco was in New York with the Giants. They're meeting with Russell Wilson. He was in Cleveland. It's such a mess. So glad the Raiders had Geno Smith. But you hear what Mel had to say about free agency. So my guy Joe Fortenbaugh is very convinced, and the way that he's laid it out to me, I'm pretty convinced as well, that Cam Ward's going to be the guy, number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. So if, in fact, he goes number 1 to Tennessee, what will the trickle-down effect be for the teams behind Tennessee that need a quarterback? Like Cleveland, like the Giants, like the Raiders. Here's Mel Kiper on that.
If it is Cam Ward, and that would be no surprise, he is certainly, it has been. It's old news to say he's a consensus number one quarterback. That's old news. I'm sticking with Shador because I'm a Shador guy. But at the end of the day, Cam Ward, I get it. I understand why he's the top quarterback in a lot of people's minds. Tennessee obviously wants to upgrade over what they saw with Will last year. Will Levis, second-year quarterback, first year in the system. I get that. But I think with Cam Ward, are they trying to talk him up? Now, after saying generational talent, that got you to Carter or Hunter, got you away from quarterback. So if you're thinking about, remember they had said also, we want to stockpile draft picks. So if you're trying to build up the quarterback and say, hey, we're taking them. If you don't want them, we want them. We'll take them. So for the Giants, for Cleveland, if you want them, you got to come to one. So are they doing this to try to get interest and say, hey, he's solidly our number one guy. We love him, and everybody's going to love him because we say we love him and we're at number one. So if you're at two and you're at three and you love him too, you got to come get him. So it'd be interesting if Tennessee is serious and they're going to take Cam Ward and they all of a sudden love him now because he's not generational, guys. So if they said they want a generational talent at one, that's not Cam Ward. Okay, that would be Carter, or in my opinion, the only one that's generational is Hunter. But if they go away from that and take Ward, that would be something you could understand. But you could also figure, hey, what's Cleveland going to do? What are the Giants going to do in regards to one Shador Sanders, who teams that I speak to, yeah, they like him, but do they love him? And you got to love them to take him at 2 and 3. So I understand it's not about do you like them, it's do you love them. Because if you like them, you say, okay, we got a late first-round grade. Doesn't mean you hate him. You got a late first-round grade on him. Well, that's not the discussion here. The discussion is, do you love him enough? Is your grade high enough to justify making him the second pick of the draft or the third pick in the draft? And right now, the people I speak to in the league don't believe that he's highly rated enough to go at 2 or 3. But I don't know what Cleveland's grades are on him, and I don't know what Giants' grades are on him, but I can tell you the league itself, yeah, they like him, but not at 2 or 3.
Very detailed answer right there from Mel. And that's the one thing. He's not going to shortchange you. He's not going to shortchange you when you're asking him questions and he's giving you a response, man. He gives you a lot of details. That's what I could really appreciate about him. So you hear the trickle-down effect, what it could possibly be. He's still not convinced that teams are going to try to trade up to go get Shador Sanders because it's still kind of hot and cold, lukewarm on how teams really feel about him. We don't know. I know I don't know. I know how I feel about him. I know how Mel, that's his guy. He thinks that Shador is the best quarterback in this draft. I'm right there with him. But with that being said, every team doesn't seem like they feel that way. So we really don't know. It's kind of up in the air with how teams truly feel about Shador. So, of course, I had to double down and ask about Shador now that the Raiders have Geno Smith and if he would fault them. And we talked about this on Thursday. If, he was there at number 6, if the Raiders took him, even though they've already acquired Geno Smith.
I wouldn't fault them, Q. I think, the Tom Brady connection's always been fascinating to see if they would go that route and how much power Tom has in that division in the AFC. You got to get a great quarterback. Now, Geno has taken it from miles. The gap between 4 in that division, because they were 4 by miles and miles and miles, right? And now they've closed that gap a bit with Geno over the quarterbacks that they had. I get that, but you're still not even close to what they are with, obviously, Mahomes, Herbert, and now Bo Nix, the emerging star there. So they got to try to close it even more. Can Shador be good enough to close it? I think he can. I love Shador, but I get why people don't feel that way because he doesn't have the howitzer. He probably won't ever run a 40. And they say, well, he'd probably only run the 4.8. You know what Patrick Mahomes' 40 time was? 4.8, 4.84. So, again, we talk about 4.8s like it's slow. Well, Tom Brady's was 5.24. So at the end of the day, I get why Shador's getting knocked because when we get into this time of the draft process, it's about traits, not about who's going to be the best quarterback. It's all about traits. That's why Paxton Lynch was a first-round pick. That's why a lot of the quarterbacks, because of traits, went high. And the bottom line is Shador's just a flat-out really good quarterback that doesn't have great traits.
And what he said right there at the end has really kind of been my biggest thing. It's like, okay, you have a guy right now. You have a guy that's probably going to get you 8 to 9 wins, maybe top off at 10. You're not going to be in position to go and get a quarterback early in the draft if you do that. And you're competing in the AFC West with a lot of really good arms. So at some point, you've got to get your guy, right? And again, if Shador's their guy and he's there at 6, go get him. Right, and I think that they will. But he might not be there, right? There's a good chance that he won't be there because teams are really desperate for quarterbacks. But, you can hear from Mel, he's not 100% convinced that other teams are really going to go get him. So that's going to be one of those scenarios that really is interesting and intriguing to see how it all plays out once the draft hits at the end of April. The final soundbite that I want you to hear from Mel Kiper Jr., again, a guest on my radio show, Joe and Q on ESPN Radio, is about Travis Hunter. So you'll hear the question that I ask about, Shador's college teammate, and just to see where he thinks, the worst case scenario for Travis Hunter in the draft coming up in April.
I want to ask you real quick as we wrap up, Mel, about his college teammate, Travis Hunter. You talked about him being generational. What's the lowest that you think Travis Hunter will go in April's draft?
4 to New England would be the lowest, Q. That's as far as I could see. Can you imagine him in New England with Drake May and ability to play on both sides of the ball early in his career and then try to figure it out thereafter? Certainly the Giants, wide receiver. You think about Malik Neighbors with Travis Hunter, regardless of who the quarterback is. So, yes, no lower than 4, and he should be based on ability. He's the number 1 pick, but that's obviously the quarterback spot. So I see that. I understand why you would take a quarterback over the best player in the draft, but Travis Hunter, without question to me, is the best player in this draft, slightly ahead of Abdul Carter.
So he doesn't think that he'll be there past 4. Right? He said if he drops at all, it's going to be number 4 to New England. That'll be the furthest that he falls. And I know that there's been a scenario, folks have thrown it at me, hey, Q, if he's there at number 6, do you take him? Absolutely. If he's there at number 6, sure. Right? If it comes down to like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter there at number 6, which I don't see it being like that, but if that would be the case, absolutely take him. But you just heard from Mel that it sounds like New England at the worst case scenario for Travis Hunter at number 4. So I thought that those are some interesting sound bites that, just kind of get you ready for the draft, even though we're still over a month away. Everything is going to be fluid, right? Situations are always going to change depending on, what free agency brings, any trades that might happen. And so to be able to get weekly updates like this, I think, are great, right? And of course, we're going to talk about a lot of other scenarios, not just the quarterbacks and not just the quarterbacks at the top of the draft. We'll talk about, quarterback 3, 4, 5. Where's Jalen Milroe fit in? Where's Jackson Dart fit in? Where's Dylan Gabriel? Will Howard? Where does these guys? Where do they all fit in? The closer and closer we get to the draft at the end of April, but I thought I'd pass those sound bites on to you. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts, 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. When people use Monarch, they realize how much they spend on food delivery. They find out how much they spend on kind of silly little side things that they don't even know that they're signed up for. Like, there's so many different apps that you can use to kind of help manage your money. This is all in one. It's a one-stop shop. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Got a lot to get to here. Your calls, your texts, 707-654-4693. We're going to try to go through as quickly as possible and get as much in as possible so we don't run too long. Let's start things off. Andrew in the 406. He's calling to talk about the Raiders offseason so far. Here he is, Andrew in the 406.
Hey, this is Andrew in the 406. Just calling to say what up to Raider Nation. I've called once before. Just wanted to put in my 2 cents on the Raiders offseason so far. I'm kind of digging it. Geno Smith kind of gives us leeway in the draft, I'm thinking. I'm kind of seeing where we're going with some of the moves. We are definitely short on defense. But I'm just kind of wondering why we don't go after Mekhi Becton. I think it would be a good idea. Sturdy up our O-line. Maybe that's just me. I played O-line in my whole life pretty much and in college. So I know that's how a team runs, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, Colton Miller, Mekhi Becton, JPJ, Dylan Parham, and then, Glaze or whoever. Maybe pick up, the guy from LSU, Campbell or something, I think his name was, or it leaves us with our options, wide open. And I think it would be a great investment And especially if we picked him up now, then we could use our draft assets on defense, which we really need to do. Then we wouldn't have to use our draft assets on offense. Maybe pick up the quarterback, spend the rest of them on defense. So I think it's a good idea. And, yeah. Anyways, Raider Nation, what's up? This is, Andrew in, the 406. So, peace and have a great day. Raiders.
Andrew, thanks for the call. Becton, yeah, I'd definitely be in favor of, right? Big body offensive lineman, put him in there at the guard spot like the Eagles did. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a big emphasis on the offensive line. I know they're not spending a lot of money, but the O-line should have a definite emphasis. Alex Kappa's been added as well, of course, for depth, but Becton would be a nice pickup. So if it's possible, I'd be all aboard to see Mekhi Becton in the silver and black. Andrew, thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from BlitzKid138. What's up, Q? BlitzKid138 here chiming in about Thursday's podcast and the need for Raiders to get their franchise quarterback. I hate to burst your bubble, but I don't think this regime is focused on finding the guy at quarterback. As Coach Carroll said at the Combine in the interview he had off to the side with you and others, he doesn't believe the quarterback needs to carry the team or be the solution to all the problems. I think Coach Carroll wants to build this team so that team success or failure does not mainly depend on how well the quarterback is playing. And honestly, I'm all for it. Anyway, thanks for all that you do. Good work, homie. Go Raiders. That's BlitzKid138. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And I don't disagree with any of that at all. But you still need to get your franchise guy. He doesn't have to be a Hall of Famer. He doesn't have to be elite, right? You don't have to go out there and find the next Tom Brady. You don't have to find the next Patrick Mahomes, but you have to find the next guy that could be your franchise quarterback. Again, he doesn't have to be the best quarterback out there. I would say I think Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. I don't think he's elite, but you know what he does? He wins. And winning is an elite trait, right? So I'm good with that. So, no, you're right. I mean, and he said it before that you got to find a quarterback, but you also got to help out the quarterback position, right? You got to surround him, make it easier for him. And I think he's all for that. But when they won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson was a real stinking good quarterback, right? That's what you need to find. That's why I'm saying if like a Shador is there at 6, I don't think any of us think he's elite, but I think he's good enough to win, and I think he'd be really good with the Raiders. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So you're not wrong. Maybe I didn't explain it correctly, but yeah, I mean it's going to take more than just an arm. It's going to take more than just a QB, but you still need to have a QB, a really good quarterback, right? Geno Smith is a good one. He's done some really good things with Pete Carroll, but he's also about to be 35 years old. So you've got to have the next wave. The biggest mistake the Raiders made when they moved on from Derek Carr was not moving on from Derek Carr. It was not having a plan behind moving on from Derek Carr, not having a guy already in place when they moved on from Derek Carr. That was their biggest mistake. Again, I didn't argue with them sitting them down. I argued with them sitting them down and not having a replacement. And that's why the Raiders are still where they are these many years later. So that's the big thing. And so, yeah, I do think it's on Pete Carroll and this staff. Tom Brady, who's minority owner, right? He's got ownership. I know Pete Carroll's only got a 3-year deal. Tom Brady's got ownership. He's definitely going to want to find the quarterback and the quarterback of the future. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider Eddie in Hollywood, Florida. He's calling because he has a question about the Raiders' approach in free agency. Here he is, Raider Eddie in Hollywood, Florida.
Q, what's going on, man? It's Raider Eddie out of Hollywood, Florida. One of the many Raider Eddies. Listen, I'm listening to your show like I do every morning on the way to work. One of the first listeners for sure. I just want to say thank you for all that you do. Certainly appreciate you and Ari over there putting on the show. You guys do a phenomenal job. We're halfway through day 3 of free agency. There's some bittersweetness happening. There's some good moves that are happening as well. My concern here, and I want to know what your opinion is, when are we going to address the offense? I mean, we've let key players go, starters from last year on a 4 and whatever team from last season go. Can't be too bad if we only won 4 games, right? But outside of Geno Smith, I haven't seen any Raider signings on the offensive side of the ball. What gives? I mean, offense was clearly a problem for us last year, and with what we have currently, we could definitely use talent upgrades. So what gives? Why aren't we pursuing any free agents? Have you got any word? Are we just dependent upon the draft for the young talent at the offensive positions? Like, what's going on? I mean, I love that we're addressing the defense 100%. I love that we're bringing back our D-line so that Max Crosby, Butler, and company can all, rock the offensive line competition, from our competitors. Either way it goes, what's going on? Why aren't we signing any free agents on the offensive side of the ball? Curious to know your take on that. All right, bud. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. You take care.
Eddie, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And, yeah, I mean, there was an emphasis on defense. At least the Raiders started to address the offense on Thursday with the agreement with Raheem Mostert. Obviously, they already made the move for Geno Smith, and they brought in Alex Kappa. So, it's kind of – it doesn't look like, well, they're not throwing big money at the offensive side of things. But they have made some moves, right? And Geno Smith was obviously the biggest one offensively. The funny thing about it is if he had been a free agent, he would have been the number one free agent quarterback on the market. Not Sam Darnold, not Aaron Rodgers, not Russell Wilson, not Justin Fields, but it would have been Geno Smith. Obviously, he wasn't. They had to trade for him, but that just kind of lets you know. So, yeah, that was the big get offensively, and I'm sure that they're going to continue to address it. Like I said, I think the offensive line needs to be addressed. Becton, we talked about a few times, would be a good addition for sure. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's just getting the first week wrapped up, and it's not even the full week. I mean, the new league year opened up on Wednesday. So, I mean, it's not even a full week of the new league year, even though the legal tampering period, as silly as that sounds, started on Monday. But thanks so much for your call. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. I got a text from AJ in Arizona. What's up, Q? AJ from AZ. Got to say, man, I low-key am hyped and love the Geno trade, man. I personally think he's a pretty damn good quarterback. He may not be elite, but he's still a damn good quarterback that's probably way above average and way above someone who needs to be just stable. Bro can make plays, maybe needs some fine-tuning to not throw them interceptions, but either way, I think he's solid. 100. However, now just hear me out. I know last week on your pod you shared a convo with, I believe his name was Daniel Jeremiah. Could be absolutely wrong. Could have been a whole different person laughing my backside off. But either way, y'all talked about the 6th pick and how Genty or a defensive back or a defensive lineman is the best pick. What about a wide receiver known as T-Mac? That's McMillan from Arizona. I'm curious on your thoughts on that because, look, we got some playmakers in Bowers and Myers, but, man, so have that 6'5" consistent. Oh, to have that consistent 6'5" back-to-back season, 1,000-plus yards rookie, man, that can low-key be the next Calvin Johnson. Maybe I'm too hype about him, LOL, but hey, man, without a doubt, he's 100% a dog with his height and skill set. It's crazy. Just want to know your thoughts and much love. Take care, Raider Nation. That's AJ and AZ. Text got messed up a little bit, but bottom line, you're talking about T-Mac, McMillan from Arizona. He's a fantastic wide receiver. He will probably be the number one wide receiver taken off the draft, and I don't even think it's close, right? I definitely believe that he's going to be the number one guy. I don't know if the Raiders are going to be interested in him at number 6. I do believe that they need to address the wide receiver position, and they haven't done anything in free agency yet, and there's not really that wide receiver that I'm too hyped about. They very well could go in that direction in the draft in April, and I wouldn't be mad at them. You have T-Mac, and you have Bowers, and you have Myers, Trey Tucker stretching the field. Yeah, I mean, look, and T-Mac could be that guy that can go get that 50-50 ball, right? That's kind of why I was excited about DK Metcalf when he was out there available for trade because he can make that big play. T-Mac could do the same thing. I would have no problem with that, especially if you get him for Geno Smith, but you're also going to pair him with a rookie quarterback at some stage of the game, whether that's a first-round guy, second-round guy, third-round guy, whatever the case may be. You kind of know that that's going to be a 1-2 punch for some years to come. So, yeah, AJ, I don't think you're too hyped. I think that you're actually spot on. There's definitely a lot of legs to what the Raiders could do at that wide receiver position. So thanks for the text. I do appreciate it. Up next, got a call from Jackson from Utah. He's calling to talk about free agency and talk about what he believes the good teams do when it comes to roster building and team building and how he thinks the Raiders should be operating. Here's Jackson from Utah.
Hey, Q, this is Jackson from Utah. Love the show. Just finished the one from today, and you sold me on it. Free agency is a little bit overrated. It's not always that players translate it. It is possible to, being consistent on the new team, but I feel like more often than not, there's a step back or an injury or something that happens, and you're already committed so much money. And so you look at, the Eagles last year. What I'm trying to say is I feel like teams that make huge improvements, they find those players in the draft. So the Eagles this last year got a couple cornerbacks and other players, and their defense significantly improved. Obviously they had different things, the development of Jalen Carter and different things. And then same with, just kind of thinking off the top of my head, like the Rams, their receivers that they've been able to get have been through the draft. Obviously, Odell was much, much older. He had Brandon Cooks and some of these players. So they weren't home run hitters, but they find Puka Nacua, BYU guy, later in the draft, and he hit. And so I think that's where we need to focus most of our energy is being able to hit now in the draft. The Eagles the last 5 years, most rounds they hit on players. And so that's where we need to be able to start consistently hitting. And then as you see Eagles this year, a lot of their players walk. I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell if they're going to regret that. But like you said, the Patriots back in the day used to do that. And it worked out because they had the next man up mentality. And so if the Eagles can keep drafting how they are, I wouldn't worry about these players walking. And hopefully the Raiders can start doing that. So appreciate the show. And I don't know if it's too early to ask this, but I wonder, we're at 6, and obviously there's going to be players, probably Abdul Carter and Cam Ward, that won't likely fall to us. But if anyone could fall to us, kind of what's your order of who you want to pick? Because in my mind, if Shador's there, Mason Graham's there, I'm just too tempted by getting a good defensive tackle and kicking the quarterback down the road. Probably not a smart thing, but I'm tempted by that.
Jackson, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. When you draft really well like Howie Roseman and the Eagles do, you can let guys walk, right? You can feel comfortable with who's behind them. Let someone else pay them. Get comp picks and keep reloading. The Raiders will eventually have to do that. Well, as far as 6, for me, Shador number 1, Mason Graham number 2, Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. He might be a guard, so maybe you wait on him. Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, 4th. Obviously, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or Cam Ward, but I believe all 3 of those guys are going to be gone. So realistic options at number 6. If Shador's there, I'm going with him. Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, I'm going number 2 there. I'll even say Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, go 3 because I think Will Campbell's going to eventually kick inside to guard. So those are the 4 options at 6. If any of those guys are available, I'm definitely good with that, but I would take the quarterback first and foremost. So, Jackson, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a pretty lengthy text here from Ocho Kell from Portland, and we'll close out with this. What's good, Q? Ocho Kell from Portland, Oregon. First off, shout out to your son and the Vikes. Idaho caught us slacking on Monday. Team had potential to go dancing this year, had a solid year. Looking forward to seeing them build on the success for next season. Now my thoughts on free agency. Spytek is handling this smoothly right now, in my opinion. Went out and got 3 guys who can contribute right now. Roberts, Chin, and Lonnie Johnson. Stokes, low risk, high reward. Bringing back Butler and Kuntz are good deals. We're in a good spot. And the patience is a breath of fresh air. Adding Geno also, 0 overpay on re-signs is the best move we made outside of Geno and Kuntz. The nation caught up in losing Spillane. He'll be missed. Don't get your panties in a bunch like he was a top 5 linebacker. I remember vividly of him missing a crazy tackle this year he should have had. I was out on him that day. I expect Spytek and company to keep making solid moves. How the draft goes for us is what I'm waiting for. Hunter going to be at 6. Genty, one of the top 2 quarterbacks. Can't wait, man. Raiders. That's Ocho Kell from Portland. And first of all, thanks for the shout out for my son. The Vikings, man, they went down. Unfortunately, they were already in the second round of the Big Sky tournament, and Idaho caught them and they had a really bad day shooting. They couldn't do anything right, so that was a bad day to have a bad day. So their season gets to a wrap. But definitely appreciate that shout out. That's really cool. As far as free agency, what the Raiders have done, I agree. I think that they've been slow and steady, and I think that's okay. Right? Like you mentioned, no big overpays. That's fine. You don't want to do that. Guys you were able to bring back, you brought back. Guys you couldn't, that's fine. You couldn't, right? You're going to get some compensatory picks for 2026. I mean, you're operating from a position of being a serious organization, not an unserious team or a team that's for entertainment purposes only. I don't know if you saw this, total side note, but talking about entertainment purposes only, DeMarcus Lawrence went from the Cowboys to the Seahawks. He was talking with a Seattle reporter and was talking about, being happy to be, in Seattle, and knew that he wasn't going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. And so that's the reason why he was, he was happy to be in Seattle. And Micah Parsons got on Twitter, and this is all on social media, and he starts beefing at D-Law. And then D-Law is beefing back. Like, I know that D-Law is no longer a Cowboy, but if that's not the definition of what we talk about, we say for entertainment purposes only. These two former teammates are beefing with each other. D-Law is telling them, if you stayed off Twitter and you tried to win more, maybe we'd still be there. That's the reason why I left. Like, it's just funny stuff, and he's chirping back at him, and I can only imagine Micah Parsons, his next podcast, is going to talk a bunch of mess, and D-Law is going to talk a bunch of mess. Like, it's just wild. But, again, those are teams that are for entertainment purposes only. I'm glad the Raiders aren't operating like that. Could you imagine if, like, Robert Spillane was popping off when he met with the media in New England with the Patriots, and they're like, oh, man, those Raiders, blah, 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 blah. Like, that just would be wild. And the good thing is that they're not operating like that. As far as what's available at number 6, Hunter, I believe, is going to be long gone. You heard Mel Kiper in segment number 2 said 4. He'll go at the latest number 4 to the Patriots. Genty will probably be available. I think that that's too high for a running back at 6, but I understand why people are intrigued by him because they know Pete Carroll wants to run the ball. One of the top 2 quarterbacks, I think only one will be there, if one at all, and that'd be Shador. I think Cam Ward's going number 1 to Tennessee. But there's options. There's options, as I mentioned before. You know, you can look at Will Campbell. You can look at Mason Graham. You can look at, Abdul Carter if he's there. You can look at Shador, Will Johnson. There's multiple guys that you can look at number 4, at number 6, I should say, if they're there, that I think would be really good picks for the Silver and Black. So thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. And that's all we got time for on today's show. That's all we got time for this week. Still got a call from YTD33, a.k.a. Proto from Vancouver. Also a text from Israel from Kentucky. So we'll get those coming up on Monday's show. We'll see if Geno Smith and the Raiders come up with a contract extension sometime this weekend. If they do, obviously we'll be talking about it on Monday's show. We'll see what free agency has, see what the Raiders, if they make any more moves, if they lose any more players, what the case may be. But this new league year thing is still fresh, so there's still plenty of moves to be made. So enjoy your weekend. Remember Selection Sunday for the women's tournament and the men's tournament. And it's almost time for March Madness, which is a fantastic time of year. Remember, March Madness really gets underway on Thursday, which is the 20th. That's when the tournament gets rolling. Full meal deal. So wherever you do your brackets, get your brackets filled out and have some fun. Get ready to go dancing. So until Monday, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. As always, just win, baby.